Why are dress codes still a thing? I mean, why are employers still writing detailed policies to tell people what they can and can't wear when they do work? There's two reasons I've been thinking about this lately. One was I recently had lunch with a colleague of mine, and he was talking about, he was sort of laughing. He's an HR leader, and he was laughing about the conversations that were happening in his organization and how different they were than a few years ago. I mean, a few years ago, they were, there was sort of a zero room for negotiation around their dress code policy. Right? It was a business casual or business professional. I don't remember what it was. And now he's having conversations about how do we address sort of athleisure in our dress code policy. I guess my question is, why do you still need a policy at all? But we'll get to that. The other thing that made me think about this was that I was recently at a conference. It was a fairly large conference, 8, 9, 10,000 people in Las Vegas. And the first day I had flown in and the conference was already in progress. So I headed straight to the conference. Just wanted to kind of check in and get a feel for what was going on. And so I showed up in my travel attire, which is t-shirt and shorts. It's Vegas after all. It's warm, it's summer. And so I rolled in my t-shirt and shorts, and I quickly realized that I was one of maybe a very small handful of people out of thousands of people that were in shorts. Most of the people, as I looked around, were in their business casual attire. And I guess that struck me as strange because I know these people, this was a technology conference. So most of these people are technologists, meaning they probably spent the better part of the last few years, and probably many of them still do today, working from home or working remotely in some way. And I guarantee you, because just from the small sampling of the people I know personally, they don't sit around at home in their business casual when they're doing work. If they're working at home and nobody's going to see them, they are wearing their t-shirts and shorts, much like I am. So I was curious about the decision that they made to wear the business casual to the conference. And the only thing I could think of was, well, I guess two potential explanations. One is they have a policy at their work that, when they're on site anywhere, they have to wear business casual. So maybe they're abiding by a policy, even though nobody's there to see and sort of tell on them to HR. Or their company has in the past required them to wear business casual, and they have a whole closet full of it, and they want to get use of that clothing, which maybe I can understand that. But it still comes back to sort of the root of the matter for me is, why are we still talking about having dress code policies at all? They seem wholly unnecessary. And I'm not talking about throwing out sort of all considerations regarding to how people dress for work, that it needs to be wild, wild west or anarchy. Because I know that in some circumstances, like healthcare, for example, the clothing you wear is really important. It's part of executing your job is being dressed appropriately. So yes, you should have policies around that. It is very specifically part of the job role. Or maybe there's safety considerations. So in some cases, you need to wear certain things for safety reasons. Absolutely, should have a policy around that, right? That's important. Or if you are customer facing, sure, you're customer facing, you interact with customers. When you are in front of customers, you are a representation of the organization, of the brand, and the organization is entitled to have some say on how you present the brand to that customer. So sure, they're going to have something to say about how you dress. And maybe they even provide you a uniform. Some organizations, if you're going to require people to wear uniforms, sure, that should be part of a policy. You must wear your uniform. Sidebar, however, if you require employees to wear a uniform, particularly a branded uniform or whatever, a specific uniform, then you should provide that uniform to the employee, right? Just in the same way that if you hire someone that requires a laptop to do their work, you wouldn't say, well, bring your own laptop. right? Or, they need legal pads and pens. We provide them legal pads and pens. If you're going to require someone to dress in a very specific way, with very specific clothing, particularly company branded clothing, you should provide that to them. Every time I see this, it blows my mind, especially with lower wage type of environments. Like in a restaurant where, my son, I think, got hired into a restaurant, and they're required to wear a t-shirt that has the logo of the restaurant on it. They're given one t-shirt, and then if they want more than one t-shirt, they have to buy their own. It's like, are you kidding me right now? It's ridiculous. Don't do that. If your organization does that, fix it, right? If you're going to require them to wear a uniform, then you should provide that uniform. But back on topic. I think fundamentally, the issue with dress codes to me is that it's the implication that grown, responsible adults who manage all of the complicated details of being an adult in the world that we live in today are not capable of making appropriate decisions about what they wear when they do work. Now, traditionally, there were people that made arguments about, and I actually worked for someone that I think perhaps his opinion may have changed by now, but back in the day, he certainly felt that putting on a suit and tie, or a shirt and tie at the very least, had an impact in how you worked, the quality of your work, that you did better work or whatever. There was a lot of people that wanted to make that argument. However, I've seen zero data, zero research to support that. And I think, if anything, we have a global case study over the last few years of millions of people who are sitting at home, working on their laptop in their pajamas or their robes or their athleisure outfits, whatever it was, and their productivity actually, at the worst, stayed level, and at best actually went up. So I would argue that now we actually have some pretty strong data that would suggest that when people get to choose what kind of clothing they wear, the clothing that makes them feel the best, that makes them feel most energized, that helps them do better work. And so I guess my point of this video today, number one, is just to vent. I have a long history of hating dress codes. From my very first job, or one of my very first jobs, I should say, as a sales recruiter, when I was required to wear a shirt and tie into a job where I was on the phone all day long. I never saw anyone except my coworkers, and yet I was expected to dress professionally. But at the same time, I worked in an office that you could not describe as a professional office. It was a dumpster fire of an office. I worked around people who didn't behave professionally. And yet I'm like, why am I wearing this? Right? So that's where it started for me. I've been angry about dress codes for a long time, but I think the issue here is that these policies, anytime we have any policy in an organization, it should be anchored in helping the employee to create better work, right? Or sometimes we have policies certainly that are aimed at protecting the employee or protecting the business or whatever. We have policies for a variety of reasons, but we have a whole bunch of unnecessary policies like the dress code policy that have no anchoring in any sort of evidence that the way you dress will have a positive impact in how you perform. It is just a way to control you and to drive assimilation. And those are two things that we should not be about as organizations, as leaders, as managers. And so we need to get rid of the dress codes. Instead of that, we need to get just crystal clear about the expectations of work, right? One of my favorite dress code policies of the last decade is, and several have adopted this now, is their entire policy is dress for your day. Dress for your day. So what do you do? It begs the question, what do you do if someone shows up and is dressed inappropriately? Well, you should do the same thing you do when someone behaves inappropriately or says something inappropriate or, performs in a way that is less than expected is you have a conversation with them and you provide feedback and you coach them, because people will learn. They will learn and they can learn. So let's stop treating adults like children. Let's start treating adults like they are capable of making the decisions that are best for them, that they are capable of understanding the context of work, that they are capable of understanding, when it's important to put on that suit or put on that polo, and when it's okay to wear your t-shirt and shorts. Let's get rid of these dress code policies. See you next time.